I think that we are not good stewards of the community that we have been elected of if we continue to prioritize pet projects over the ability for our community members to actually not even thrive at this point, just to survive, to not have their property auctioned off at the courthouse step because you decided you wanted, something extra at a ball field or whatever. It's like, no, you just may not be able to get that pet project this year. You may not have an extra $2 million to give to somebody else so that you can get your name scrolled across some cute little building somewhere.
Hey, family. Welcome to the Black Man's Roundtable podcast and another episode of our Local Leaders series. Today, we are very excited to welcome another hardworking local county commissioner to the Roundtable. This time, it is Douglas County, Georgia District 2 Commissioner, Attorney Whitney Kenner Jones. Whitney, how's it going, Commissioner?
I cannot complain, and thank you for having me back on the Black Men's Roundtable. I'm very happy to be here.
It is absolutely great having you back. I think the last time we had you on, you were actually running for this seat, and you did an outstanding job running for this seat, and I know you're going to talk to us about that a little bit. So anyway, it's going to be a full episode of Commissioner Whitney Kenner Jones, and we are looking forward to, we're going to talk about, you're going to update us on what is happening with District 2 in Douglas County, and I know you're going to talk to us a little bit about the importance of local politics and why all politics is truly local. So Whitney, we're going to jump right into it. First, I want you to tell us a little bit about your journey from lawyer to county commissioner. Please.
Well, so as I had said the last time that we were here, we were right in the middle of our first election. We had 4 races back to back to back because we had a special election to replace the previous commissioner, Kelly Robinson, who retired. And we were successful in that race, got elected for the remainder of his term. And then we had to have a primary and a runoff and then the actual election for the permanent seat. And so obviously our campaign was successful and I'm definitely excited to be here. But as an attorney, my primary practice is in child welfare law, and I get to see on a very personal and deep level every day how local legislation impacts outcomes for families. Specifically when you're talking about child abuse, neglect, abandonment, a lot of those issues really are cultivated and created by people's lack of access, lack of opportunity, lack of education, lack of resources. And so I felt like if there was an opportunity or a way for me to get involved and effectuate that change on a local level, it was important to do so. I don't think that people realize local policies really do impact your ability to access even basic necessities. And when you don't have access to those things, you are by far more likely to find yourself in the system in one way or another, whether that's through a juvenile court case or a superior court case, state court case, things like that. And so I would like to see less and less people end up needing those systems because they can meet their needs in a very different way, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And I've kind of followed your career from afar and watched you do the work that you do in the community for our, young people in the capacity, as a lawyer. I think that it also, what I've seen, it helps, it makes sense, the compassion that you have in the work that you do as a commissioner, in the work that you have been doing as a lawyer prior to that. So I definitely appreciate that as well. I've often called you the Raphael Warnock of Douglas County. And the reason that I do that is because Raphael Warnock had to run a lot of campaigns to get his seat, and you kind of had to do the same thing here. Yeah, at the local level. So, and I also think that you have the ethic and the ethos of a Warnock as well. So it's not just because you guys had to run so much to get your seat, but also the professional and the personal side of what you do. Okay, so next I want for you to, because I know that people often confuse, local politicians and local elected officials as far as what their jobs are, what they're supposed to be doing, And so what I want you to do is to give a quick synopsis of what a county commissioner is and, what they kind of do on a daily basis, different from things like city council members and stuff like that.
I'm actually so glad that you asked that question because part of what my team has really been trying to do is correct misconceptions about what commissioners have the power and authority to do and what we don't. And
Right.
so, as a county commissioner, we are responsible for the entire population of Douglas County. That's about 150,000 residents. That's a stark contrast to city council, who's only responsible for the confines within their border. In Douglas County, it's about 30,000 people that they are responsible. And so each county or each city council person has about 10 or 11,000 people or so that they are responsible for. I have about 40,000 residents that I'm responsible for, and that's managing people's ideologies, their faith backgrounds, all of the things that would help you shape your policy and trying to do the best for the most people.
Right.
Within the county commission, our job is strictly to legislate and appropriate. We are, a lot of people think, oh, we can go and tell homeowner associations what they can and can't do, or they think that we have the ability to go and micromanage maybe what the sheriff's department is doing. And we just simply don't have that authority. Of course, we can make suggestions or recommendations, but our greatest goal is to make sure that we're using our legislative power to ensure that the policies of the county meet the needs of the community in the most appropriate way, and then that we are allocating funding resources appropriately across all of the departments that we are responsible for. And so, as a commission, our biggest responsibilities are managing your public health, making sure that we are managing public safety, that we are managing your work, live, play areas. So making sure that we are attracting and acquiring appropriate business development, that our planning and zoning is appropriate so that we have the right things in the right locations, and then that we're giving you quality of life. So that's senior services, parks and recreation, things like that. That's what's really in our wheelhouse. And then, of course, we do work with our state delegations to make sure that we are advocating or promoting policies that may come before them in the House of Representatives or the Senate that would impact our residents. And then I do also take it very personally that part of my job is to make sure that I'm also advocating for our citizens on a federal level. I think that this shutdown has made people very much so aware that it may take a minute for the federal policies to trickle down to you, but eventually they will get to your front door too. And if you don't have a group of people that are advocating for your best interests, you could find yourself in a dire situation very quickly.
Thank you for that. And but yeah, it's we take for granted sometimes that people just know and just understand every single thing that goes on in local politics because it is so local, but actually I think it's the opposite. It seems like the more local it is, the less people understand, what the job is. So I definitely appreciate your continued effort to not just here on the Black Man's Roundtable, but your continued effort to educate people about what the county commission does on a daily basis. Okay, so next is the big whopper for this for this podcast episode, which is we want for you to give us an update. And if you go into any of the things with the county as a whole, that's fine as well, because I know sometimes it's hard to completely talk about District 2 and leave out the rest of the county because there's so many things that interface, and you do have to work with your other county commissioners, in order to get things done, even in District 2, as well as work across the aisle on the Republican side to get things done, like that as well. So, but please give us an update on District 2, Douglas County.
It's so funny that you say that about working with everybody and thinking about the county as a whole. I I will just be blunt. You know, I always tell you,
Yes,
what I'm
and I
thinking. We're going
appreciate
to
it.
be very forthcoming. But I think that some of the stagnation that Douglas County has experienced over the years is because people have been laser focused on what their gets are, specifically for their area, and not thinking about the greater picture and the benefit for Douglas County as a whole. I think that part of the reason why District 2 specifically is booming right now with positive development and positive growth is because I'm not ever only thinking about District 2. It's what is the impact to the county as a whole, but then how are we leveraging our partnerships as a region to make sure that people want to come here and do business, that we're not duplicating efforts in our very close neighboring borders like South Fulton or Palmetto. I just recently did the Housing and Leadership Academy with the Atlanta Regional Commission and tried to find out, okay, regionally, what is the shortage in housing? It's 350,000 units
Wow.
across the Atlanta metro area to truly meet housing needs and have that missing middle attainable housing. So, hey, what can I do that complements maybe an industry in South Fulton or an industry in Palmetto so that they can have appropriate workforce housing in Douglas County? Maybe we can meet some of our density issues so that we can then attract better businesses like a Sprouts, things that people have said that they are wanting, because we don't thrive if we are not working together. But with
Right.
that being said, as everybody knows, District 2 has the most data centers. Since I've been in office, we have been able to very successfully leverage the most recent relationship with Amazon Web Services, AWS, coming here, and just last month finished a partnership with Kaboom and AWS to build a new playground at New Manchester Elementary School. It's the first time that I'm aware of that a corporation has come and helped pay for a major build out, several $1,000s to get that work done. But so now the PTO that had already been working to raise funds to get that playground upgraded can use those funds to go towards resurfacing their basketball courts. And it's just going to continue to enhance the community leaps and bounds, making sure that we're leveraging those partnerships. We're also working with AWS and Gooder next month to bring a community food market to Factory Shoals Middle School, where 150 families will be able to come and shop at a mini market free of charge to them, to be able to provide foods and services to their community. And so I think District 2 has built a reputation for making sure that you care about your neighbors and that you're doing things to help them out so that they always feel like there's a sense of community. And just watching that grow, to me, honestly, has been really special. The other thing is a lot of constituents have had issues, let's say, with like the Publix on Lee Road, but making sure that we're leveraging our intergovernment affairs to communicate with them. And now the Lee Road Publix has had some renovations and been brought into a nicer market, things that people wanted to see. So we're working. I hope one of my most recent projects, and we just did a presentation on this at the county commission meeting yesterday, was about our tax abatements and kind of where those tax abatements started, where they are currently, and where they see them going. And I would love to see a situation where we could leverage a tax incentive for the shopping centers down Fairburn Road, for them to get a tax incentive and save some of that tax revenue that they would owe to the county and reinvest that so that we can get some of those buildings refaced, have some of those services brought up just to a better standard in general so that we can raise the quality of life for our residents, because there's no reason why you should be driving down Fairburn Road and it still looks like you're in 1980 with
Right.
the amount of growth and development and just overall income that's coming to this area.
Yeah, and speaking of Fairburn Road, I don't usually go that way quite often until I'm going out of town, going to South Georgia, where I have relatives and all of that. But I remember just going. It had been maybe a year or so that I hadn't been down that far down Fairburn Road, and I was just looking at the development and all of the things that has come there since the last time I've been there. So there is some great work and great development going on Fairburn Road, and I when I saw all that, first person came to head was Whitney Kenner Jones. I'm like, man, she's doing it over here. So yeah, I'm sure the residents appreciate that. What about I want to talk a little bit about, speaking of Fairburn and some of the other roads in District 2 where things are starting to some cities and counties have a tendency to outgrow, or their population. The infrastructure, the population tends to outgrow the infrastructure sometimes, and then you run into all of these problems. We know that might be going on in some of the other districts here in Douglas County. Um, let's reassure the people that live in District 2 that that will not happen, to the best that you can do, along with, of course, your other commissioners, of that nuisance of the population outgrowing the infrastructure in District 2.
So I actually serve as the chair of the Transportation Committee,
Okay.
and that is one thing that I'm extremely focused on, working with our managing director, Suleiman Rana, but also with Allison Duncan, the managing director in planning and zoning, to make sure that we are accounting for transportation options that get cars off of the road is my number one goal. Right now, we have a partnership with the Livable Centers Institute to try to build out our trails project, because if we can get people out using multimodal transportation, so that's
Mm.
walking, biking, e-scooters, things of that nature, then for everybody that is able to commute like that, those are cars that you're reducing off of the road. That means less time spent rebuilding your infrastructure, resurfacing roads, things of that nature. Also finding ways to make the bus system more efficient, so that we do have a robust mass transit plan. And that's, again, going back to my earlier comment about making sure that you are working within the region and not just within the confines of Douglas County.
Right.
All of the 11 metro areas right now are trying to figure out how to get interconnectivity across all of our small individual county transit systems, so that we can get people in and out of the metro area easier. And so making sure that we have ways to do that. But the other thing that we're doing as part of planning and zoning is, when new developments are approved, that they are being required to put in the transportation enhancements. So now you'll see, when we have planning and zoning meetings, a lot of the developments are being required to put in their own turn lanes. They're being required to put in the deceleration lanes. They're being required to have their development bordered by sidewalks, so that we eventually will have a network of interconnected sidewalks throughout the county. That if there's major road damage or something like that, that they are responsible for those improvements, so that the residents don't have to take that on. And then making sure that every development is doing an appropriate transit study, so that we can understand what the impact is to transportation, congestion, things like that, before you blindly approve a new development. And of course, there is pros and cons to that, because to get some of the nicer things that people want, like, I keep going back to the Sprouts or a Fresh Market idea, you do have to have some level of density, but you can do that in a responsible way, that you're not creating traffic nightmares for your resident.
Yes, and like you said, if they are burdened with the responsibility of the turn lanes, the slow down lanes, and all of that stuff, then it saves the people of District 2 and people of Douglas County a lot of money. So I'm glad that you guys are making them pick up the tabs in certain things, because we just cannot take that for granted. A lot of county commissions will suck up and do whatever they need to do to get a business to come to the county, and a lot of times the residents pay for that. One other thing I want to talk about real quick too is something that it seems to have finally gotten under control throughout the entire Douglas County, and that is these warehouses and the car washes and the dollar stores. What have you in particular done in District Two to kind of maybe not, because we need some of this stuff. We do need some of it, but to kind of put I don't know, pump the brakes on some of those uh, eyesores of car washes and dollar stores and warehouses.
Well, so part of one of the things that a drum that I have been beating since I got here is that our ordinances need to be reevaluated. And so we are a significant bit of the way through with that. You'll see at the planning and zoning meetings, mass
Okay.
text updates and things like that. Most of those are being done specifically to address that. One of the things that I had requested specifically, not just for District 2, but for the county as a whole, was for our planning and zoning department to go through and find out how many discount stores do we have, so that
Yes.
an appropriate ordinance can be put in place to prohibit them from stacking right on top of each other. There's no reason why we should have 3 or 4 Dollar Generals and Family Dollars and Dollar Trees in a 2 to 3 mile radius. The developers that push those models oftentimes say, oh, this is what your demand is, but it's approving those items keeps other businesses out. Sprouts is not coming to the same parking lot as Family Dollar. They're just not. So if
Right.
everything seems discount or not appropriate, you can have all the density in the world, they're still not coming. And so it's making sure that we are making appropriate decisions to prohibit that from happening. One of the things that's really important, though, for District 2, because the boundaries between city and county jump so frequently in very small portions, is making sure that I have a very good relationship with my counterpart on city council, so that when there is something that's coming up that is on their agenda, they can give me a heads up and say, hey, we're thinking about this. Does the county already have something like that? And vice versa, so that we're not duplicating efforts. Because a perfect example of that is on Fairburn Road. There are 2 car washes directly across the street from each other. One is in the city and one is in the county. Had that communication been there years prior, perhaps that wouldn't have happened. And so just making
Right.
sure that we're focused and paying attention. And then one of the other things that I do from time to time is also follow the agendas of our neighboring cities, like the city of South Fulton. If they have, let's say a liquor store coming up on their agenda, um, that's going to border my district, and I know that there's a liquor store less than a mile or 2 miles from you all's border, going and
Right.
making sure that they know that, so that they're considering it. Because the average person that's driving through the metro, they're not paying attention or thinking, oh, I was in the city of South Fulton, now I'm in Fulton County, now I'm in Douglas County. You're all
Right.
on you're all on Fairburn Road, and we all need to be good stewards of that area and make sure that we're having appropriate communication, so that we're not um you know, continuously approving things that are undesirable to the neighbors in our borders, but also the people who are next door.
Yeah, and when you were talking about the dollar stores, I was reminded that I believe, I'm almost sure, that it's actually in the dollar store's business model to literally stack on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's actually a part of their business model. I don't know if it still is, but I know when they first came around, and I remember researching it because I'm like, why when you see one, you just see another one like right there, and then come
I
to
will
find
say
out, it's
from
like, oh, that's their model.
Yeah, and so my undergraduate degree is in public health, my master's in public administration, and people, just from a socioeconomic standpoint, need to recognize that when a business is doing that, they're ensuring that you don't meet the definition of having a food desert in your area, but they're not ensuring that you have to have quality access to food and nutrition in your area. And so if they get to basically corner the market by doing it that way, because anybody
Right.
else that's coming in or trying to break in, let's say there's a franchise of, and I'm just making this name up, but let's say there's a franchise of Fresh Grocery Store, and they say we want to go and put a new grocery store in Douglas County, but then they
Mhm.
use GIS mapping software to see where the need would be. Well, if you have $15 generals all around claiming that they also sell food, it looks like the market is saturated. And so then you may not come to that area. It's detrimental to our residents.
And I'm glad you described it that way, and I'm glad that you pointed out that there is that these decisions are not just being made off of the top of people's heads, but
Mhm.
there is a lot of software and stuff that people rely on. Well, we know that with AI and software that these things can be misleading. And
Mhm.
that's why we need commissioners like yourself to say, oh, okay, well, they're looking at this GIF software and thinking that it's saturated over here in District 2. And then being that you know better and being that you are doing your homework, that you're not just showing up to commission meetings in the evening and just running off at the mouth or checking the box, then this is what helps to have people in place in these local positions that really do their homework, really understand what is going on, because you will turn right around and say, no, we're not saturated. That software is telling you something that is not true. So definitely, again, appreciate that. Commissioner, one thing that I heard, and I never thought about this concept. I can't remember whether it was someone on the Roundtable, the Black Man's Roundtable platform, or whether I was listening to someone else's podcast, because I tend to listen to everybody else's podcast except my own. It's weird like that, but that's how I'm able to get all this information and stuff, as well as for as reading and listening to other podcasts that's related. But either way, there was this concept of these data centers. And I
Mhm.
know District 2, and I say, you know what? Whenever I get Whitney back on, I'm going to ask her, what does she think about it? Is it even feasible? But what I heard was that this concept, because of where the data centers are being put in, and located. Now we know these data centers use a lot of resources, water and all this stuff. And so, but it was brought to my attention that later on, these things could be used to house people. Right? We know it's been done before. We know that there have been buildings and different things put in. Let's be straight up. This is Black Man's Roundtable, the Black community,
Mhm.
where it was later used for, let's just say, things that we did not want for that to ever be used in our community. But it's just
Mhm.
one thing. And then when you look at the buildings, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I just wanted to get maybe your take on that, or about maybe these data centers, once they've gotten their use, to maybe be used for something as crazy as housing people.
So I figured that that's where you were going, and I think Douglas County is a little bit uniquely situated
Okay.
in terms of we weren't at the very front of the data center boom, but we're not at the end of it either.
Okay.
I think that we have done a decent job of being strategic in terms of which data centers have come here, at least in terms of the ones that are located in District 2. So Microsoft is not going anywhere. Amazon Web Services, I mean, we're becoming such a digital society. I think that there's going to be more growth in those sectors versus the idea of when data centers really used to mirror um, an office space's technology closet, that kind of outdated stuff. So we're not seeing that. My bigger concern is with the actual warehouses because
Right. Okay.
and don't quote me on this, but I think there's somewhere around 200,000 square feet of warehouse space in Douglas County that has been approved that has never been occupied by a tenant. So the
Wow.
question becomes, what do you do with that space? Now, I would hope that we would be visionary in terms of doing something more like what the city of Atlanta is trying to do, or what places like Brookhaven or even up in Gwinnett County, where you are repurposing those centers into live, work, play communities, getting creative with what your housing options look like. Repurposing some of that space. But I'm cautiously optimistic that Douglas County is not going to end up being a place where we are housing bodies for labor or anything like
Right.
that. The other thing I will say is one of my biggest concerns is the environmental impact of the data
Right.
centers, but I do again think the ones that are here, at least in District 2, have demonstrated a motivation for continuously enhancing their processes so that they can take some of that strain off the grid. I think that they recognize if they are using up or over consuming what is available to the community, they're located in that community. Eventually, you're going to overuse what's available for you too. And so, we do have environmental studies, various different things that we can do to make sure that they're reducing their impact and that they are becoming more energy efficient. And I will say, during my last conversation with WSA, even they are making sure to hold them tight to being on a closed loop water system so that they're not using any of our water resources to cool those the data centers down, because it is important to make sure that my residents still maintain their quality of life. These people should be an addition to the community, not a leech on it. So we are trying to make sure that they are at least environmental good stewards of the areas that they're in.
Great, great. And it's yeah, it definitely, because the person that I either had on or was talking to, they definitely was not, talking specifically about Douglas County,
Mm.
but I said, maybe it'll be something, to ask Commissioner Jones what she thinks about that, and what, and what you guys are doing
I
to
think it's a great question
prevent
because
that.
it would concern me. Um, the data centers that are coming to some of the more rural
Hmm.
areas in
Yeah.
South Georgia, um, that don't have the workforce for people to work in those data centers. The likelihood of people with the skills to work data centers are going to leave metropolitan areas to go down there if they don't have some robust ready to work programs. I could see it turning out just like any other industry, like the coal industry or whatever, and becoming obsolete. And then that county's commission has, a 50,000 square foot steel building that's built with the purpose of being a secure facility, and they have to
Right.
have some way to bring industry back to that area. I mean, I definitely could see that being a viable concern, that
Yeah.
in those more rural markets that they may end up becoming detention facilities. And with what's going on nationwide with ICE, I mean, it wouldn't
Yep.
surprise me. It really wouldn't
Exactly.
surprise me. I'm just thankful that Douglas County is not situated, that here at least the data centers are working with workforce development through our community colleges, through the high schools, trying to make sure that there is a workforce that they can keep funneling into these jobs so that they don't go under just because they didn't have somebody that could work in them.
Great. And you cleared up a lot of what I'm about to ask you, when you talked about the job of a county commissioner, and you gave an excellent answer to that. But one of the other things that I would like for you to clear up is that people think sometimes that the county commissioners are, superheroes, or have some kind of power that they just don't have.
Don't
And
have.
so, um, and I get asked these questions sometimes as if I'm the commissioner, and I'm like, "Hey, wait, look, they can't do that, or they can do this, but maybe not that." So when we're talking about business right now, we're talking about the warehouses, and people are just like, "Hey, county commissioner, just stop them from coming, just stop them from building car washes and all of that stuff." I would definitely like for you to take a moment to break down what you guys, in other words, you guys can't necessarily stop a business from coming, but there are things that you guys can do to attract the right kinds of businesses, or, have the other kind of businesses that you don't want here to kind of stop looking over here, kind of thing. And so, could you talk about that just a little bit before we get off businesses and warehouses and all of this stuff, as far as how far the county commission can go?
So, oh, that's so loaded, but not loaded. So, obviously, our planning and zoning ordinances are our strongest ability to control what can and cannot come to a specific area. So, we can't tell somebody who they can sell their property to, but
Right.
we can tell them once you sold that property, whoever buys it, this is what you can't do.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
I think being strategic when you are assessing what does your small area plan look like and what does your land use map look like so that you have the appropriate things in appropriate places. For a long time, Douglas County did not do a good job of that, which is why you have data centers right on top of people's neighborhoods. It's not appropriate. You should be planning for future use and thinking about, does does it make sense to control warehouse development and distribution to one area, data centers to one area, people's houses, what things can be mixed use in the same space, and making sure that you are using your planning abilities to account for that.
Right.
The other thing is making sure that we are um, and our planning and zoning team does an excellent job of posting the notices, making sure that it's in the newspaper so that we can get feedback from our residents about what they do and don't want to see. But then also making sure that we are appropriately evaluating applications when they come before us. And unfortunately, I know sometimes the community would like us just to say no just because they don't want it here, but the
Right.
law is very clear in what you can and cannot um, use in your assessment bag of tricks when you are deciding to or not to approve a development. And so it's really important to make sure that you're appropriately following those steps, making sure that your code is written in a way that what's permissible is clear. You do want to make it easy for people to come and develop in your area, but you want it to be easy for them to develop in the right way. You do not want to have to condition a development to death. If you find yourself at commission meetings or joint P&Z meetings saying, yes, you can come, but you have to do this, and this. By the time you're done, there's 15 conditions on a development. You probably should go back and see, does our code need to be tweaked up front so that this is not happening over and over again, and then making sure that you are very much aware of what is developable by right versus they have to come to you to ask for special use. And if there are things that you don't want to see a lot of, making sure that you have appropriate parameters around making that a special use permit, relegating it to specific areas, things like that. But it's making sure that you have figured out how the law works in your community's favor, as opposed to having something come and now we're trying to figure out how to clean it up.
Excellent. Um, well, we're going to move into local politics
Okay.
and the importance of local politics. And what better person to be able to talk about this? Someone, like I said at the beginning of this episode, someone who had to really earn her seat. And so, but also, not to say that anyone else didn't earn their seat, it's just that you did a lot. I was there. And so, but also we talk about it on this platform a lot, and that is the importance of local politics. All politics is local. I'm constantly saying to people that, that say, I don't do politics. And I tell them all the time, if you don't do politics, then politics will do you, but it will happen. And if you don't get at the table, if you're not going to have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. But also we want for people to understand that I tell people to maybe look at it differently the next time you go and vote on, especially the presidential year where everybody and their grandmother is running for something, is you may want to start at the bottom of that ticket and work your way
Mm-hmm.
up instead of at the top of that ticket working your way down. Because the closer they are to the bottom of that ticket,
The
chances
more
are the more
important they are to
impact,
you.
yes, the more impact they
Mm-hmm.
have on your lives on a daily basis. I tell people all the time too that what they do in the United States Congress and in the Senate and the House of Representatives, whatever they vote on and become a bill, the president sign it, it becomes law. It may get to you a year, 2 years. Sometimes it can get to you faster. Don't get me wrong. But
Right.
however, what they are doing at those commissioner meetings, what they are voting on they will vote on it on Wednesday and Friday. It is in your face. So, but yes, Commissioner Jones, talk about the importance of local politics and the effect that it really has, and that all politics is truly local.
It it is So true. It is so true. It is so true. And I wish that some of our residents would spend more time trying to identify the interconnectivity of issues. Not to get too down in the weeds, but let's just think about the abortion ban. That's a
Right.
state level and a national policy. No county commission anywhere has any authority at all whatsoever to impact or effectuate what those regulations look like. But what you do have the ability to do is manage public health. A lot of people don't realize that the public health department can meet all of your prenatal needs. They can meet everything from if you are at the contraception stage and you do not want to get pregnant, that's where you can go to get contraception from. That's where you can go and get your STD counseling and testing, any treatments that you need. You can go there and you can get your pap smear. You can get prenatal care. After your baby is born, they will send Babies Can't Wait to your house to make sure that you know all of the safe sleep parameters. Everything from start to finish happens at your local public health department. Well, guess who's
Yep.
obligated to make sure that your public health department is appropriately funded? Your county commission. And so we are responsible for making sure that they have adequate and appropriate facilities to provide you with that medical treatment and providing them with an appropriate and sufficient budget to ensure that they can meet your specific health needs. If you have a commission that doesn't believe that counties or governments should be involved in healthcare, do you think your public health department is going to be well funded or it's going to be underfunded? And then what does that look like for you as a citizen who may need to use that service down the road? And so that's a federal issue, but your local government is who impacted or who had the most effect on how that legislation impacted you, because they can help you be in a situation where maybe you don't need to use that abortion clinic, but also so that you can get all of your other healthcare needs met. And so even, let's take the shutdown and the SNAP benefits, for instance. If you have a local government that doesn't believe that we should be in the business of making sure that residents eat and that we're not really that concerned about it, do you think your food pantries and community services partners who can fill that gap if you don't have SNAP benefits is going to be well funded or is going to be underfunded? That's your county commission. We are the ones that have the quote unquote checkbook to say,
Right.
no, we want to make sure that our residents can eat regardless of if they have access to SNAP benefits or not. And we're going to demonstrate a commitment to that by cutting a check to ensure that when you get into the food bank line, that there is a sandwich and a bottle of water there to make sure that your needs get met. And so, again, federal policy, we have no ability. We can't tell them to release those benefits. We don't
Right.
cut any of those checks, but what we can do is make sure that the resource that you need is met. The same for mental health services. You can either have a commitment to making sure that your mental health services providers are well funded or not well funded, despite your ability to access Medicare and Medicaid. The state makes the decision not to accept Medicaid expansion programs that would reduce your health care costs, but you have a commission that's trying to make sure that those health care costs are managed on a local level so that you can still access the care that you.
Right. And I talk about that a lot when I talk to citizens as well, which is that, yeah, they cannot control legislation that's coming from the federal government or from the state house. However, they can do things to mitigate or to extenuate some of and give a cushion, give a
Mm-hmm.
softer blow to what is happening at the state and at the federal
Mm-hmm.
level. Because if you got a community where, in other words, I can't foresee ICE coming into Douglas County doing a whole bunch of stuff. I think I heard somewhere where they were somewhere for a little while somewhere in Douglas County. I don't know. I'm not sure. But however, if these, even at the state and at the federal level, they're not going to come into communities where they know that those local elected leaders are not hearing it. They are not
Yeah.
buying it. People saw what that mayor in Chicago stood up That's a
Mm-hmm.
local. I know Chicago is a huge city, but
But
that is a
still a
local.
local.
Yeah, that is a local election. That is a
Mm-hmm.
municipal election. No matter how big Chicago is, and you know what, they knew to stand down on certain things because of what he
Mm-hmm.
he said. Or the governor there in Maryland, we're not hearing this in Maryland,
Right.
and so that's the importance also of the local elections. But one thing, and the importance of local elections, and one of the things I want to, uh, I'll be remiss if I didn't speak on it a little bit before we get off of local elections, and that is your stance and your grit on the millage debacle, the millage rate that was going on a few months ago. I know it's over. I know everything is done, but
Hallelujah.
yeah, I would. You stood. I'm not going to talk about what other commissioners did or didn't do. From my viewpoint, District 2 Commissioner Whitney Kenner Jones stood on business the entire time of making sure that these millage rates do not increase or go up. And then that's what I mean by working across the aisle. That's what I mean by interacting with, you've probably said South Fulton 5 times on this, and that's great. I love that because that's going all the way outside of the county, and and District 2 touches that border with them. And so, but I do, before I get off of local politics, I would like for you, if you want to talk about that, the millage rate, how important it was, and your diligent work in making sure that the millage rate didn't go up for the county here this past 6 months ago, however long it was. It seemed like it was 6 weeks ago, but I know it's been longer than that. But I would like for you to talk about that before we get off of local politics, if you will.
Yeah, so we did, as you said, we stood firm on the millage rate this year. But if you recall last year, I actually advocated for them to roll the millage rate back so that people could start to experience at
That's
least
right.
a little bit of relief. I think that we are not good stewards of the community that we have been elected of if we continue to prioritize pet projects over the
Yep.
ability for our community members to actually not even thrive at this point, just to survive, to not have
Yep.
their property auctioned off at the courthouse step because you decided you wanted something extra at a ball field or whatever. It's like, no, you just may not be able to get that pet project this year. You may not have an extra $2 million to give to somebody else so that you can get your name scrolled across some cute little building somewhere. What does that
Exactly.
mean for anybody if your residents cannot eat, if they cannot heat their houses? I think because of the work that I do, I see it on a daily basis. Like people are like, oh, it's just $20. It's just $40. Well, for a lot of Douglas County's population, that $40 is the difference between lights and internet in your house. That
That's
is the
right.
difference between can I get to work this week and can I feed my children? And people are like, oh, well, you get subsidies and you get this benefit and you get that benefit from the government. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on in your household. There's 4 people that live in mine. And if my SNAP benefit was $136 a month, that's pretty much not feeding anybody past
Right.
the first week of the month. Every dollar, every cent counts. I was astounded to find out that 33% of Douglas County residents have one or no car. These are individuals who work every single day,
Yep.
full-time employed. You can't even do that's like such a basic thing that you take for granted. You get in your car, you crank it up, you drive off. You don't have to worry about that. And so when we're talking about raising the millage rate, I think the proposal was 3 mills. That's $500 or $600 on most people's tax bills. That could
Yep.
wipe out a family's livelihood out for the year. I just don't think it's appropriate to play with that. Like people's ability to live is not a game. When we're having conversations where our EMTs, our firefighters can't even live in Douglas County, I don't want my, firefighters coming from 2 counties over because that's where they can afford to live. They need to be here.
Exactly.
And so I think that we need to take that in consideration. And I think any discussion of raising the tax rate, if you don't have an articulable plan for what you are going to do with that overage and how it is going to benefit every citizen that lives in the confines of Douglas County, then the conversation is a non-starter. The same with taking out debt in the county's name, the same with taking out bonds. If you cannot tell the residents what your specific plan is for every single dollar of that, then we don't need to be having that conversation. Leave it alone.
Absolutely. And and once again, Commissioner, I just want to tell you that I definitely appreciate you standing on business with that, and now to hear the personable side of the why. And sometimes we do need to hear the why, not all the time from our elected officials, but I definitely appreciate your passion with that. Um Next I want to talk about the future of District 2, the future of Douglas County, as you see it through your work, as you see it through your eyes, your passion, your love for this county, for this district. Let's talk about the future.
In the very immediate sense, I definitely think that we're going to continue to grow. I know that there are a lot of residents that have heartburn about the Lee Road expansion, and even when I talk to those residents, I genuinely do take it to heart. I would not champion for a project or support a project that I did not legitimately believe was going to enhance or make your quality of life better.
Right.
Um, I think that that expansion is going to genuinely leverage Douglas County, particularly with our access to I-20, to grow as one of the larger economic engines on the west side of Atlanta, and that's going to mean a lot of boom for various different industries. We just need to be very strategic in what industries that we are trying to attract, and I definitely think being in the healthcare sciences now with us having attracted Zoetis here. And then of course we have BioLife in the county as well. Like
Yeah.
that is a very sustainable market that we can help our kids transition to, help them earn above living wage jobs in industries that are actually desirable and beneficial to our community. And I just think having an easier traffic flow for ingress and egress out in and out of the county is certainly going to help that. Also in an immediate sense, I definitely want Douglas County to get in the mindset that when we have some of these major events come to Atlanta, that is an opportunity for us to be smack in the middle of earning revenue and generating true economic growth for Douglas County. And so right now I'm also the chair of our World Cup committee. um,
Right.
Douglas County, because we are the closest metro county to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. People are going to be coming here to go and watch the games, participate in different events. So we're trying to make sure that we are building a robust events and community around that event so people can get used to the idea of, oh, I can go down to Douglas County and I can have a clean and safe, good time. That businesses can thrive when we have
Right.
these types of events coming here and help them grow, get their names out there, help some of our vendors be able to say, we managed the World Cup in Douglas County, and this is why you should hire us to do things outside of the county because we have major players here as well. Like we have tons of businesses. I think about even the boardroom. She's a Douglas County District 2 business, started out of her kitchen, and now she's doing catering events for for Ferrari and View magazine and things like that. So it's like Douglas County has the qualified businesses. How can we give them a platform on a world stage so other people know that they're here? So that would also be, kind of a part of where I see us going is just making sure that we're really giving our businesses a platform so that they can grow. We even have the White Dress Project. Their founder lives in
Yeah.
Douglas County. They're advocating on a national level in DC for fibroids, helping us to become a major player in that space. Like Yes, women should know that they can come to Douglas County and that we have resources to help meet that need. And if we don't, we can absolutely refer you and get you to the right places. Um, so just making sure that people know and can appreciate kind of what we have going on here. Of course, with Great Point Studios, we would love to see them continue to thrive and have District 2 be a movie production hub in
Yeah.
for the county and for the region would be absolutely phenomenal. And then just mostly, a reinvestment plan. Like I said, I sit as the chair of the tax abatement committee, and finding a way to leverage tax incentives for existing businesses that are already here so that they can revitalize the community that they've already been committed to for for such a long time, so that they can expand and grow and thrive, I think would be, you know, my biggest hopes, I guess, for District 2, but really for the county as
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought up the existing communities, because sometimes when we're trying to revitalize or we're trying to grow, our community, we forget about the people who were already here.
Mhm.
And so I'm so glad that you talked about that and that you're keeping them in your mind as you continue to do what you need to do to help grow Douglas County as a whole and District 2 specifically. So that is also music to my ears as well, because I've seen to where so many of the people who businesses that have been there for so long get left
Get
out,
nothing.
and so yeah,
Mhm.
get nothing, and they are important to the revitalization and the growth of the county as well. So Commissioner, before we get into how people can reach you and any projects, any events and things that you have coming up, is there anything that that you want to say to this audience, of the Black Man's Roundtable, which is about 65% Black men here locally, and I'm very proud of that because it was women dominated, and the reason I'm proud of that is because it takes so much to get men on board than
On
it does
board,
women.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so we're reaching people, but is there anything specifically that you want to say to that audience, to your audience of District 2, before we close it out with things that I know you have coming up?
I will just say if there was ever a time for people to see that local elections matter and that you need to get out and vote, it is in our public service commissioner race. The fact that the state of Georgia went from
Yeah,
having absolutely no Democrats on that board at all whatsoever to flipping both seats is a phenomenal example that people are paying attention and
yeah,
don't lose that momentum. Go out and continue to vote because while it's a statewide election, directly impacts every single household
yeah,
in Douglas County, in the city of Douglasville, in the Atlanta metro, because those are the people who set your utility rates. Those are the people who are going to hold these data centers accountable for paying their fair share of their utility usage. Like that was not a very publicized race, but people were paying
right,
attention, and
yeah,
they did something that was going to make a difference for them. And you will see that when your utility bills don't go up. They've already been raised 4 times in what, the last 5 years. We're going to put a hold on some of that, hopefully, with these new members coming in. Like the residents did that. I didn't do that as a local politician. You all
exactly.
did that. So your voice absolutely matters. Don't lose the steam and the momentum. You have several races coming up in 2026. You got 3 commissioners on the ballot in 2026. There's city council people that are up for election. There are judges that will be up for election. Pay attention. Go vote.
And one of the things I want to point out too, Commissioner, is that one of the things we talked about on this platform is for those people who are not on, on Medicaid, or the people who are not on the Affordable Care Plan, and they have this wonderful, nice private insurance, that they sometimes like to talk about. But what I told people is, well, I'm in that same boat. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm not on Affordable Care, none of that stuff. However, I understand the importance of Medicaid and Affordable Care Plan, because so many of those people, I would say a majority of those people, when you were talking about, rural and urban areas, that's the insurance, Medicaid, and Affordable Care Plan that are keeping those hospital doors open. So what I've told people, and not in all cases, but in many cases, and what I've told people is that I can have all the wonderful, great private insurance that I want. But if the hospital closed because, you've taken away Medicaid and you've taken away the Affordable Care Plan or reduced it or gutted it so much to where the hospital can't keep its doors open, then my private insurance, I got to go an hour out of the way. Yeah, I can use that hospital, but I got to go way out of the way now because it was too many people that didn't care that said, you know what? I'm not on Medicaid. I'm tired of those people. I'm not on affordable care. I'm tired of those people. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk on that, Commissioner. But however, what I'm relating that to, and I'm hoping that you can maybe shed some light on, is that the Public Service Commission. So if you are on Georgia Power, if you're not on Georgia Power and you're on Greystone or one of the other ones, then the same thing can apply. But before you go there, Commissioner, I would really like for you to, because I can tell you wanted to get into that, what I was talking about not paying attention to Medicaid and stuff because you're not on it.
It's always so funny to me when people say, "Oh, I have private insurance, so I don't benefit from the Affordable Care Act."
Exactly.
Yes, you do. If you have a pre-existing condition, you absolutely do.
That part.
Because if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, if you have glaucoma, if you have eczema, guess what the Affordable Care Act does? Keeps your private insurance from being able to drop you, or from raising your premiums so much that you can't afford that private insurance. So all of those bills still matter to you, whether you think that you are using or benefiting from them or not. That also, people are like, well, I don't have Medicare or Medicaid. Do you know how many people that I have talked to who have said that and then turned around and told me that they have Peach Care? Baby, that's Medicaid. That's Medicare. It's just called something different in Georgia. And they do that purposefully to keep people at that cognitive disconnect so that you vote against your own interest because they've made it sound like it's some other person that has this thing or that benefits from this thing. And a lot of the residents, I hear them complain about their wait time at Douglas Wellstar or in the emergency room. Well, it's going to buckle up. It's going to get so much worse when there are no other options for people to go to, because the emergency room cannot turn you away for treatment, but everybody else can if you let that get overturned and we don't have those added protections. Which takes me back to our earlier conversation about why your local elections matter, because my hope is that with the $4 million infusion that we gave to the public health department, their ability to expand and provide low cost, no cost, and sliding scale health treatments, because the public health department, short of surgery, can pretty much do everything you need. Your children can get vaccinated there. You can have your blood pressure monitored there. You can go and see a physician to make sure that your diabetes remains managed. All of those things you can get from the public health department. Well, we're ensuring that the public health department remains appropriately funded so that you still have access, so that our other healthcare systems do not end up overworked and overburdened, because when that happens, people get burnt out and they quit, they leave. And what we don't want to do is have a mass exodus of healthcare providers in Douglas County.
Absolutely. And so we need to understand, and again, that's you talking about the Affordable Care Plan on how the pre-existing conditions, and again, the Medicaid, when we talk about the Medicaid, those Medicaid keep a lot of these hospitals' doors open. So they both don't let them fool you. And one of the things we talked about, I think, Commissioner, on, I want to say one of our last episodes, is that people, like you're talking about, they call them different things, right? To confuse, to get you cognitively thinking about it's this, but when it's really that. We talked about on one of the episodes recently about how, and reminded people about how the Affordable Care Plan and Obamacare and how people hate it.
It's the same exact people thing. Are in favor of the ACA, but hey, Obamacare, it's the same thing.
They can't stand Obamacare, but they
It's
love that ACA.
crazy.
So yeah, it's mind games. So listen to the commissioner people when she's telling you that they are playing games with you. They're
Mhm.
playing word games. And we know that some of the people who are not in our best interest are very good at word games and word salad. So listen to the commissioner and what she tells you on that, because it is absolutely true. It's been proven, especially with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act being the exact same thing. So, Commissioner, it was great having you on here again. I always appreciate your matter of factness, your passion.
It's
Uh,
unhinged, I know.
you are unhinged, and look, and you're you're a military brat. I hate to use brat,
Very
but it
much
is what it is.
so.
Yeah, and so it is so obvious that being a military retiree myself, and I know you come from that kind of family, is that it makes me smile, because I'm like, hey, this young lady is passionate. She is standing on business. She is our local. A lot of other elected officials that's at higher levels. I'm not going to
I
sit here and
keep
call all
hearing
the
our local Jasmine Crockett. I'm like, oh
Jasmine
Lord.
Crockett. You see, she's our Jasmine Crockett. And so, yeah, I just really, appreciate your passion. You haven't lost any of it. You definitely you're a breath of fresh air. But not only that, you only been a commissioner you're still in your initial first term. And I'm telling you, you are a savvy veteran in my eyes, in what you're doing. But hey, like I said, you do your homework, you talk to everybody, and you don't mind holding people accountable. So I appreciate that. So, Commissioner Jones, if you can let people know how they can reach you, any events or things that you have coming up, share it with the people.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we do have the community food market, the mini market that's coming to Factory Shoals Middle School. That's on December 5th.
Great.
Prayers up. We are trying our best to plan a women's healthcare summit, really in light of all of the things that are happening on a federal level in terms of people's just ability to access basic women's health care services. We're hoping to be able to pull that together and have it done in March. So we will definitely reach out to the Black
Cool.
Men's Roundtable first to
Absolutely.
announce the date time once we are able to get that together. Of course, the World Cup is coming and we're working diligently on that. So we're going to have some dates in June and July for events for that coming out. And then, of course, anybody that wants to get me can always find me at wkennerjones@douglascountyga.gov. And we will respond to you. And then we do have our bi-monthly newsletter if people would like to subscribe to that as well. And we'll make sure that you have the links if you don't mind putting up that subscribe button so that people know how to find you.
Absolutely. And Commissioner, we're looking forward to doing another district update with you, hopefully in the first quarter, if not the second quarter of next year. But I'm basically saying that we're going to get you on as soon as possible. We are booked, but however, that's a good problem to have. But however, any chance that we get to squeeze in yourself and maybe one or two of the commissioners that we feel are doing the work, putting in the labor. Not everybody is treated the same. It just is what it is. Hey, I get to say that. But we don't discriminate. It's just that if you're not doing the work, if we don't feel that you're passionate about what you're doing, we just don't have time for that. We are unapologetic here, and we're going to continue to be that way. So with that, Commissioner, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we look forward to having you back again.
As always, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, you can catch the Black Man's Roundtable podcast the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the BMR's Roundup with Rodney and Rodney the second Thursday of the month, and the BMR's Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace. Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.